Start recording. Okay, it's recording now. Hi, Mr. Moss.
How do you
So
do, Jack?
I'm Jack Young, and today I'm going to interview you for this U.S. history project. Its theme is about the similarity between generations, and you. I hope you can share some of your life experience with me.
Okay, I will be happy to,
Okay,
Jack.
thank you. So there are seven themes in U.S. history, like migration, American identity, exchange technology, America in the world, like those themes. So we are going to go by each theme first.
Okay,
And first theme we're going to talk about is migration and settlement. Uh, so let's do it from. So in the 1940s, 50s, there are like there's all like U.S. always been a like migration nation made of immigrants. In the 1940s and 50s, there are a lot of like Europeans and Mexicans come to the U.S. What's your like if you can remember? How do you feel about the incoming of?
okay. Well, I was born at the end of World War II, 1945. So my memory starts really in the 1950s, and I was in high school and college in the 1960s. So that's my frame of reference. But I think the United States has always been a country that has welcomed immigrants, and I certainly believe in that. I think the inscription on the Statue of Liberty uh, that welcomes people into this
Yeah.
country is what we ought to do. I'm a great believer that living in other countries and other cultures and working with people from other cultures is the greatest part of education. Uh, I was very distressed during Mr. Trump's presidency when he closed off integration and started restricting people from other countries, particularly Muslim countries. People are people, and governments may not get along with each other, but people should be able to relate to each other.
Yeah.
So I'm a strong believer in a good, decent immigration policy that allows people to come here and earn their citizenship.
Uh, So, do you feel like there's any change in your life experience? For example, like 1980s, the difference between 1980s and like maybe 21st century. Do you feel like there's more Mexican people or like Asian people or like other European country people around you? There's
Probably fewer Europeans. Uh, for the most part of America's history, that was the largest immigrant population, Northern Europe. I think in recent years we've seen much more migration from the, the south of the United States, from Mexico and Guatemala and other parts of Central and South America. I think we've also seen a larger influx of immigrants from Asia. And again, that's to me says that America seems to have something to offer that those people want. And I think we should welcome them here.
okay. Thank you. And we can move on to the next theme for American identity. So basically, how Americans feel about themselves. Uh, So you were born in 1940s, and uh, a bit later, when you are like young adults, you probably have heard of Martin Luther King.
Yes.
That's like a key.
The civil rights movement was very strong and was going on when I was a student in high school and college, and especially college. And I've always been a supporter of civil rights. I think this country still has a long way to go in terms of treating people equally. Uh, there have been, I think, particularly in the South, restrictive laws that have held back black people.
Yeah, like Jim Crow.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a resurgence of that right now as so many of the states are controlled by more conservative politicians. We're seeing a return of restrictions on who can vote, how easy it is to vote, where you can vote. And I think all those things really are a modern version of Jim Crow, and I'm completely opposed to it. think all Americans born here or naturalized citizens should be able to vote very easily. And so I'm against all the restrictive laws like we've just seen passed here in Georgia.
And there's also another like big part of like minority movement, which are the women's strike.
Yes.
You probably like all those two movements probably like happened at the same
Yes,
time.
and the civil rights movement really helped the women's movement that came later. I just still think it's almost bizarre that women in this country couldn't vote until 1920. I mean, that's just unimaginable to me. So I think that both of those movements have been very healthy, and I think both of them reflect what America is supposed to be according to its Constitution. We're getting there. We still have a lot.
Could you share about some share us with some of your like life experience? Like, have you seen like any protest or any like
Yeah. I
march
saw
when you're in college?
I saw civil rights marches when I was in college, and I'm very supportive of those. I've also seen violence against marchers, like when civil rights marchers were beaten when they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama. I've seen Ku Klux Klan marches here in Rome. The last Ku Klux Klan march in Rome was really funny because about a very small handful of marchers marched down Broad Street and nobody came out to see them. It was really funny. It was like they were pitiful. People just like, we don't want to be bothered with these people. So it was a total failure on their part.
In Broad Street?
Yeah.
In New York?
Yeah. So the Klan marches, but nobody pays any attention to them, which I thought was really cool.
Do you think that era is really violent and chaotic? Do you like see like protests every day or like?
I think there's a history of violence in this country that disturbs me, and with the prevalence of gun laws, violence is becoming more and more a problem. And I just think it's ironic that the state of Georgia, for instance, has just made it legal for anybody to carry a gun without a license. You know, we have a license to drive a car. Why shouldn't we have a license to carry a gun? And yet everybody screams about more violence, more deaths, more killings. So what do? We just give more people guns. It makes no sense to me. And I think anytime a violent act takes place, it stirs up people on both sides. And that's the sad thing to me.
Wasn't there a shooting in South Carolina before?
When I was growing up, it was very rare. It just didn't happen. I think the violence in the United States in the past 10 years has really increased. And I think,
especially during COVID.
Yeah, especially during COVID. And
people are getting annoyed.
And you look at Great Britain, for example, where police don't even carry guns, and the number of police shootings in a day in the United States, either police shooting people or people shooting policemen, that happens daily in the United States, and the numbers are larger than an entire year in the United Kingdom. British police have a squad that's issued guns, but they're only called out in an emergency. So, as I say, we have more people killed in the United States in a day than Great Britain does in a year, which tells me something about how stupid it is to give everybody guns. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And what about 911? 911, you probably are really, really familiar with 911. Really
Marijuana?
No, 911.
Yeah.
the
I remember it
terrorist.
very well. I was sitting in this office, and one of our teachers named Larry Baker lived in his apartment, which is now Mr. Bell's office. And he came running out of his apartment. He was watching TV, and he came running out of his apartment to say they'd just flown planes into the World Trade Center. And so we all went rushing into his apartment to watch. And the whole school, the student body, they were all running to TV sets and faculty apartments to see what was going on. It was